wanting to get started in whittling or wood carving, finding a good carving or whittling knife is always an important thing. When I ran across one on Amazon, went ahead and ordered it. I think for some people it might be a good place to start, and it's got some really interesting attributes. It's very affordable. The company is Hutsuls, Hutsuls, and this is their whittling knife. So we're going to take a look at it. Before we do, if you would, please click on the like and subscribe buttons. That always helps. Let's put this thing on the workbench and take a look at it. Okay, this is the Hutsuls whittling knife. Comes in this little box. This is obviously not an unboxing. I've already got the knife out. It's got this hashtag hello carving thing going on there. The knife came with a little blade guard on the tip. This little warning thing that says sharp and ready to go is around the handle, and some instructions. Now, there's not only instructions on one side, user manual, tells all about using the knife. Also, there's an article in the back about the artistry and symbolism of the Hutsuls in the Carpathian region of Ukraine. And he talks about all these symbols and what they mean, and the culture that this knife comes from. Now, the guy that owns the company, this Hutsuls company that makes these, lives here in the United States, and he has family in Ukraine. He's from Ukraine, and he and I had a little bit of communication back and forth via email about the knife, and he was very helpful. So if you have questions, you can go to their website, and it's hutsuls.com, pretty easy, and you can ask questions. He also has some other wood carving tools and that sort of thing. Now, this knife, as you can see, for a wood carving knife, it's a pretty decent sized knife. Now, I don't have very big hands. I'm half Japanese. My hands kind of reflect that smaller size. My mom was only 4'10", so I did not get, very tall, and I did not get very big hands. So anyway, you can see a lot of this sticks out past my hand. It's a pretty good size carving knife. Now, we're going to talk about some of that. Let's first go over some specs. The knife has some really interesting attributes. So the blade is 3 3/16 inch long, or 80.5 millimeters, and there's no ricasso, so you notice that the blade is sharp all the way up to the handle. The blade is 0.0775 thick, or basically 1.96. I think you'd call it 2 millimeters thick. It's made of a steel called SK2. Now, if you've been around knives a whole lot, you know that SK5 is a Japanese steel that's very commonly used. Cold Steel uses it in a lot of knives. A lot of people use it. SK5 is very popular. But this is SK2. Now, so what's the difference? Well, SK5 has, I think, if I recall, I'm just off the top of my head, I think it's like 0.7 or maybe 0.8% carbon, and it's a carbon steel. But SK2 has 1.15 to 1.25% carbon. It's also got silicon, manganese, phosphorus, and sulfur in it. You can certainly Google, but it's called SK2, and it's a higher level tool steel. And so that's one of the reasons I went ahead and ordered this, because I was kind of fascinated with the steel. I've never had a knife that used SK2 steel. Now, as I understand it, reading through some of their website and the literature on their knives, this blade is I believe differentially tempered. So, when they temper a steel blade, it's heated red hot, and red is not a, just because it turns a little red doesn't mean it's the right temperature. There's a specific temperature that you have to get the steel. It's a pretty bright red. I've heard it called cherry red, and then it's dunked in either oil or water depending on the type of steel. And there's oil hardening steels, and those that that you dunk in water, and there's even what they call air hardening steels. But typically it's going to be quenched in water or oil, and then normally the steel blade goes back in an oven where it's heated up to around 400 degrees. It'll start to turn kind of a light straw color, and then you turn the heat off and just let it slowly cool. And that second step of putting it in the oven is called tempering, or what you're doing is when you quench this thing in red hot and you quench it in oil, it's too hard. It's brittle. It'll chip, it'll break real easy if you leave it that hard. So you have to reheat the blade to bring the temperature back, or the hardness back a little bit. That's called tempering. So this is differentially tempered, and what that means is after this is quenched and it's really hard, they put this in a heating situation or apparatus where the heat is coming from the back of the blade. So this part of the blade gets hot faster than this part. So what happens is when they heat this blade to the right temperature so that the colors are where they want, it might start to get the kind of purplish blue back here, but it's probably a very light straw, or what they call wheat straw kind of color at the edge. Then they turn the heat off. And so the spine of the blade then becomes more, it's less hard. So it's more durable, more ductile, more flexible, you might say. And then the edge is very hard, which helps it hold an edge. So that's kind of an interesting step. I mean, a lot of knife companies don't do that. I know some companies like Lauren Metalli in Finland does that, and you pay extra for that step. So differential hardening is kind of a premium step for a knife like this. And this knife, one of the things that kind of surprised me when I got it is it's Scandi ground, right? So this bevel goes all the way to the edge. There's no secondary bevel. And I was concerned at the hardness of the steel that might be a problem. In fact, you probably can't see it in the video, but right around here, yeah, you can kind of see them. There's a couple of microchips right here, and those were on the blade when I got it, probably due to, I don't know, some handling issue when the blade was being made. There's a couple of tiny chips. Now, they're so tiny that you don't even notice them when you're carving. I mean, you can carve right past them and you don't even notice them, but they're there. And so that kind of caused me to be concerned, especially considering the angle of the bevel. The bevel on this knife, and I take my protractor here, and I can measure the bevel, and the bevel on this thing is only 18 degrees. So it is a very acute angle. And normally when you see a knife that has a bevel that's that shallow of an angle, that acute, it'll have a micro bevel on the edge to make it a little stronger. This doesn't, and I thought, well, is this thing going to chip? Is it going to, I mean, it's already got a couple of tiny little microchips up here. Is it going to be a problem? So I started doing quite a bit of carving with it, and really wasn't trying to make anything, but, I was just carving on some basswood just to kind of see how it cut, how the geometry of the blade works, and it just eats through wood. I mean, it just sails right through it. So the geometry is really nice. It really bites into wood and cuts easily. But what I was concerned about is what's going to happen when I start carving something like ebony, right? And so I got out a chunk of ebony. This is one I've used for a lot of things, and I started carving on it, and it cuts right through ebony and leaves a nice polished surface. And I was really impressed that not only did it carve through the ebony really easily, it didn't get any duller. I can still cut through paper with this. It'll slice through paper. And so my fears about the need for a secondary bevel were kind of allayed. Since this has a couple of microchips, I'm probably going to do some sharpening on it to get rid of those chips. Will I add a secondary bevel? I haven't decided yet. It is such a shallow angle that it seems at some point it could be an issue. But I mean, I really tried with some ebony and some hard maple and some other woods to try to see if I could make this thing chip, and it wouldn't do it. I mean, it didn't chip, and it didn't get dull. It's very hard steel. It's very sharp, and it really cuts into wood. So all those, I have to say, are really good. My fear about the angle of the grind and the thinness of the edge seemed to be a non-issue, at least as much as I've used it. Like I say, it has a couple of these microchips. I'm guessing that another knife blade or something, bounced into it, or it hit something hard. Obviously with a steel that's that hard, you don't want it crashing into other knife blades or other, hard metal surfaces. There is the quality of the grind. If you can see it, there's a couple of little spots up here near the tip where the grind has got some extra deep little kind of grind marks. Other than that, the grind was pretty nice. Really can't complain about anything on it. The blade really seems to perform quite well. The handle is kind of big. So it's 5 inches long. It's 5/8 of an inch thick. It's 1 inch and 5/16 here at the thickest part of the belly. It's made of black walnut. And so, you know, again, I don't have very big hands. There's quite a bit of handle sticking out here. That's not a problem. It seems like this is a little wide for me. If you have bigger hands, this is probably no big deal. And it's thin enough that I can easily wrap my hand around it. It was not uncomfortable to use at all, and I could use it in different grips, and you know, it seemed to work just fine. Since this is mine and it wasn't given to me, it's not on loan from the maker. I bought it. I'll probably modify this. I'll probably shorten it a little bit, keep the same angle here just so it looks the same, but it's a little bit shorter. And I'm probably going to plane this swell down just a bit and then redo these bevels so that it looks nice. Just because my hands aren't as big. And you know, it's a real common thing for wood carvers to customize their knives. They'll customize the handles, they customize the blades, they, you know, do all kinds of things to make the knife work the way they want. And so that's, you know, that's maybe to be expected. Anyway, thing weighs 1.5 ounces or 44 grams. It's not very heavy. I've been using it quite a bit, and it's been very comfortable to use. And so all in all, I can't really can't say anything real negative about it. It's been nice to use, and it has performed well. And the amazing thing is, it was like $15 on Amazon, and it's really a lot more than I expected for $15, to be honest. The steel, the differential tempering, you know, it's really a lot of performance for that kind of money. Now, the only thing that some people might find objectionable about it is, you know, you'll see a lot of other companies, there are several, 2 or 3 now, that are making knives in Ukraine. And while this owner of this company is from Ukraine, and is, you know, they do some of their prototyping and testing and stuff in Ukraine, this is actually made in China. If that bothers you, then, you know, that might be a thing. But frankly, today almost everything we get is made in China. So if you have a problem that you're probably struggling to buy anything these days. But anyway, it is made in China, so if that's a thing for you, then that's that. But it's again, the knife has performed really well. It's an interesting design. It's excellent steel, and the heat treating of it seems to be really excellent. The blade grind kind of scared me with the shallow angle, but in the end, it's holding up. It hasn't failed on me at all, and I kind of expected some big chips to happen or something, and it just didn't happen. Even when I was digging pretty hard into ebony, it just didn't happen. So that's the knife. Like I say, it might be something you want to look at if you're looking for another wood carving knife or getting started in wood carving. Well, that's the Hutsuls Whittling knife. Like I said, it's got some interesting attributes. There may be a few things I would do to maybe modify it to fit my taste, which is very common for wood carvers to do. But I think it may be a good starting place for some people. I'll put a link in the description down below if you're interested in getting one, and you can take a look. So I hope that was helpful. If you have any thoughts or questions, please don't hesitate to leave me a comment. I always appreciate it when you leave me comments. And as always, thanks for watching.